Hey, somebody catch a boat for Carver? You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
Well, it's all a matter of keeping a clear head and solving your problems one by one as they come up. That's about all there is to it.
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth.
But isn't that what being an international man of mystery is all about?
With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer.
Well, I've wrestled with reality for 35 years, Doctor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. As the Professional Noticer, it's my job to professionally notice something for you, and nothing's off limits. So, what's your question? Business, spiritual issues, popular culture? We can even tackle odd conundrums like if the professor on Gilligan's Island could make a radio out of a coconut, why couldn't he fix a hole in a boat? Look, my purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by GrowingDeer.com. If you already watch Growing Deer episodes or regularly visit the GrowingDeer.com website, you already know why the Andrews family are fans of this show. This weekly show arrives in my email inbox every Monday morning. I think they post a new show on YouTube. You can subscribe there on their website, and you should, because there's so many different things. The host, Dr. Grant Woods, is the wildlife biologist. Okay, he is the guy, and in fact, he's a friend of mine. He's a go-to guy of mine for when I look at something. I'm saying, what kind of plant is this? I asked him. I called him one time and I said, "Do you know? Have you ever seen a tulip tree?" And he said, "Yeah, it's a kind of a poplar tree." And I'm starting to have this conversation with him. He's telling me all about this stuff. Saved me hours. Now, he'll save you hours too if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But you have somebody who is interested in the outdoors, because this isn't, the boys told me, Austin and Adam found this, and so this was like, I don't know, 5 years ago that they found this, and they said, "Dad, we have found a show, and it's done on the internet, and it's better than any outdoor show on television by far." And I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, well." And so I watched, and after watching one episode, I was like, "Well, that was amazing. Okay, let's watch another one." And so, well, that was amazing. I mean, this is high definition. Show it on your big screen. The wildlife footage is unbelievable. Tracy, the Grant's wife, and Ray and Raleigh's mom. She cooks. She'll make jerky, and it's just amazing. Raleigh and Ray are on the show a good bit, and some of the guys that work there are just great. Daniel and Clay, just a bunch of them. And so I really, whether you're an outdoor person or not, certainly an outdoor person, turn them on to GrowingDeer.com. And you go check it out too, okay? That's GrowingDeer.com. All right. Observations and answers. What we do here, I deliver the observations, but you provide the questions, okay? Always remember, the quality of our answers can only be determined by the quality of our questions. I would certainly love to field a question from you. Write me. The email is theprofessionalnoticer@andyandrews.com. And listen, if I use your question on the podcast, we'll send you your choice of the Guided Traveler Experience, which is 8 hours of live video, or you can choose the 100-year parenting course. And the question we have this week is specifically about that. I think you're going to be interested. This question is from Amy. Hey, Amy.
Hi, my name is Amy, and I'm from Lexington, South Carolina. And Andy, I wanted to ask, well, let you know, my husband and I are big fans. We first heard you speak at our company's success school, and we read or listen to your books and buy them as gifts for others often. We've recently become parents to our son, who we've been praying to adopt for many years. We're blessed and excited, but also nervous about raising him to be a great adult. We want him to know he's completely loved and accepted, but we don't want to spoil him as he becomes a toddler and child. I've already read and listened to a few baby books. There are a lot of conflicting advice out there. So I'm interested in your 100-year parenting series. Is there any advice you didn't include in the series that you wish you did? Or any now that you wish you hadn't included? Thank you.
Amy, hey, thank you so much for the question. Congratulations. Oh, my gosh. We've got a couple of friends that are also working through that adoption process, and I know how patient you have to be and how tough it can be to be patient in that situation. But very happy for you. Congratulations. And you're going to, you say you're nervous about raising him to be a great adult. This is what we say. You're referencing what I tell people a lot, because people say, we're just trying to raise great kids. And I was like, well, you don't really want to raise great kids. What you want to do is raise kids who become great adults. That's two different things. But Amy, I don't think you have to be nervous about it, because knowing what you're gunning for is half the battle. I think a lot of people miss the mark because they don't know that's even a mark, right? And so I don't think you have to be nervous about it. I know what you are saying. I know exactly how you feel when you say you read a few baby books and there's a lot of conflicting advice out there. I remember, when Polly and I had Austin, and then not too long after as Adam, there was a period of 5-6 years there that we were reading a lot of children's books. There are a lot of raising kids books, and my overwhelming memory about that time was that I think every book I read, it would give advice, and yeah, there was conflicting advice, but a lot of the advice that they would give would be like, well, we find that 83% of the children that are exposed to this type of parenting or 67% of the parents that use this technique find that, or, it's like 71% have found. And I remember thinking, I only have 2 kids. I got to have 100%. I cannot give up like 20% of one of my kids. And I just, I got to have something that works all the time. And that is really, that was the thought. That was the genesis behind the 100-year parenting course. Was I wanted to find something that worked every time, and I couldn't find it. I mean, I remember even when I started that process thinking, I got to find something that works every time. I started looking and I said, well, what, are there certain areas of the country that all the kids turn out great? Are there certain kinds of families? Are there, and honestly, Amy, I couldn't find a group. I couldn't find a color. I couldn't find a color of people that all their kids turned out great. I couldn't find, a denomination. I couldn't find a religion. I couldn't find a financial bracket. I couldn't find anything. In fact, the idea of, we have 3 kids, 2 of them are neurosurgeons, and one of them is in prison. I mean, that seemed to be just like this cliche. And people going, yeah, we raised them the same way. Yeah, we're their parents, but we don't know what happened. That seemed to be more the norm, that people just kind of were, man, they were hoping. And so I was really, really on a search. Now, before I tell you kind of what I found out, and I want to tell you, and I'm going to send you, okay, we're going to send you this 100-Year Parenting series, Amy. But I want to answer your last two questions first. And then I will tell you how that 100-Year Parenting series came about, why it's named that. But let me answer these last. You say, is there any advice that I didn't include in the series that I wish I did? Okay. That answer is no. There's nothing that I wish I had included. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point when I redo it, that doesn't mean that I won't add something. All right. But there's nothing I wish I included that I didn't, because in this series, 53 videos, 10 to 20 minutes apiece, I put in there every single thing I knew at that time. And I think we did this, when we were kind of coming out of the thick of it, I suppose. We were, the boys were teenagers, getting to be older teenagers. And I used everything I knew at the time. Now, I obviously, we keep learning, we keep figuring new ways to explain things. And so one day, if Matt and I redo that, then I'm sure there's some things that I'll add. But then the other question was, is there anything that I wish I hadn't included? Nope. And the reason is because I made sure that everything that went in this was principle-based, was explainable, and it had the two things that I think people need for change. One is, I think that every one of them that it comes with a written version of this too. So you can watch the video, you can read it, you can download it and listen to it in your car. But I think that every single one of them, you will immediately see the benefit. You'll see what's in it for you. But more than that, you will go, wow, that totally makes sense. I just want it, there's nothing in there that I wish I hadn't included, because I made sure that everything that went in was principle-based, that it would benefit you and your child, and it would also make sense to you and your child. There is not a single place in there that I recommend saying, because I said so, or as long as you live in my house. In fact, I explain why those are things that you do not want to say. So, what happened was, as I'm looking for, something to help us, something that we can trust, something that we could rely on at the time, I'm always reading biographies. I'm always reading stories, and I'm curious over the years how many stories or biographies of kings I might have read. It's been a lot of them, but it's because there's a lot of biographies of kings, because I think every king who ever lived, somebody wrote a biography of them, right? I mean, they save and kings write. They aren't necessarily the greatest writers, but they write. And because they're king, they save everything that they write. So somebody saves it. And I mean, somebody saves everything they do. If King Henry VIII ate with that fork, you can bet it's in a museum somewhere. Somebody says, yeah, no, the king ate with that fork right there. Right, yes, that one. You don't touch it. I mean, that's just being a king. And so I came across some stuff that was written, and here's what I'm doing. I'm explaining this to you right now exactly the way that I explain it on the video. Okay? Some of you will be more familiar, some of you will be less familiar, but I'm explaining how I got this material exactly like I explain it on the video. When I was in high school, there was Matt, you're not going to remember this, but just act like you do, okay? It just drives me nuts that you're so young that you don't remember some of the coolest stuff. Before Indiana Jones, there was a character that Richard Chamberlain played, and he did a movie called King Solomon's Mines. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world because King Solomon was a real person. And they're based in this movie, he's finding the mines because King Solomon is known to have been not just the richest king, but the richest person in the history of the earth, the richest person. And there are historians who also say he was the wisest person. So, in my search for trying to find something to help my kids, and I can't find anything that doesn't conflict, anything that says 100% of the time. So I start thinking, okay, well, I read biographies, I read what people write, I study stuff. So is there anybody who ever turned out so great? I would like to find out more about them and emulate what they did or how they did it. And so it occurred to me that I had seen this movie, King Solomon's Mines, Richard Chamberlain, and that King Solomon was a real person, and that he was known to be the wealthiest person in the history of the world and the wisest person in the history of the world. So, I mean, if you're the wisest person in the history of the world and the wealthiest person in the history of the world, that's got to be like number one. And so I started researching the guy, and just like every other king, they saved his stuff. I mean, stuff that he wrote, you can read it. And so now I'm not saying all of it's totally understandable because I started reading this and I read it for years and really trying to understand and please God, let me know what he's even talking about here. And it was amazing the breakthroughs that I got about because his writing, he's telling the kingdom basically how to live their lives. I mean, he's telling them, how to choose a spouse. He's telling you how to raise your kids. He's telling you what to do this for your kids. And telling you about your money, telling you about your business, how to make money, when you make money, what to do with the money you make. I mean, it's like it's everything, but it's a lot of basis about the family and the kids. Now, I got to tell you this. As I'm reading this, because I'm kind of, I like to consider myself skeptical, but not cynical. But sometimes I can go over into that cynical realm. But I remember reading some of this and not really understanding it and thinking, well, why would he tell everybody this? And why would they listen? And I got to thinking because, I believe, and I wrote a book about the bottom of the pool. I believe you can go to the bottom of the pool with your thinking and figure things out that people have only just kind of surfaced forever. And so as I'm thinking about this guy, King Solomon, I'm thinking, why why would he do this? And I got to thinking, well, his dad, because I'd found out that his dad that was also king, obviously. His dad was King David, the guy that killed the giant. But if you're a movie person, that was Richard Gere as King David, and King David. I got looking because I'm thinking, okay, well here is the wisest person in the history of the world, the wealthiest person in the history of the world. I'm going to read about his dad, and I start reading about his dad, and I'm like, ooh. because his dad, King David, man, he was kind of a screw up sometimes. I mean, he made some bad moves, and in fact, I remember thinking if Xanax had been invented when King David was alive, we probably wouldn't have anything that he wrote. Because if you read the stuff he wrote, he's happy, he's sad, he's got a great relationship with everybody, everybody hates him. I mean, it's just one extreme to the other. And he made a bunch of bad moves. But as I'm reading his stuff, I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of a screw up sometimes. And if somebody like this guy can raise a kid who becomes the wisest person in the history of the world and the wealthiest person in the history of the world, all right, well, maybe there's hope for me. And so as I'm looking at the two of them, I realize David was he was a conqueror. I mean, he was the kind of king who fought, who led battles and stuff like that. And if you read about how David's life was, about how they lived and all, it was kind of an armed camp. It moved around and he was fighting and leading fighters but Solomon built buildings and they stayed in one place and it got bigger and better and beautiful, and the throne, you find a description of the throne made of ivory and gold and valuable cedar, and I mean it's just unbelievable. But he stayed there. So I'm thinking, how, why would he say all this stuff? Why would he tell everybody? And I realized, how did this king make his money? Right? The dad, you can tell how he made his money. He just conquered a city, okay? But Solomon, how did he make his money? I mean, in most kings, how do kings make their money? I've been amazed, hearing that stuff about the kings over in England now, the royal family. Harry, what is it, Harry and Meghan? Is that who it is? That's hilarious to me that the guy, that the guy. First of all, didn't we fight the American Revolution so that we didn't have to care about these people, that they could do whatever they wanted and we didn't have to read about them? But you can't go into a grocery store now without seeing something about Harry and Meghan. And I laughed because he said, we're going to leave the royal family because we want to be financially independent. And I'm like, has anybody ever told this guy he has $88 billion? I mean, why does he think he's flying on a 747 by himself? I mean, but he's wanting to be financially independent. But it is the first time in history I've ever heard of anybody leaving their family so they can spend more time at work. I mean, that's what they're doing. Okay, so I was talking about King Solomon. So King Solomon, he makes his money with taxes, which means the more money the people in the kingdom make, the more money there is for the kingdom. And so he is telling these people how to run their businesses, and he's telling them every bit of truth he can possibly figure out because he wants their businesses to prosper because a percentage of it's going to the kingdom. And he's also figured out that these people who own all these businesses, if their families are doing great, if their children are doing great and growing up and doing great, then their businesses are going to be better. And so he's telling them everything about it. So even from a mercenary point of view, you can kind of trust what he said. So I found like 53 things in there that he specifically said about raising kids and have explained them in a way that will change your thinking. Now, I want to tell you, we called it 100-year parenting because I am very interested in generational increase. I don't know is that a good way to put it? Generational increase where, I know several families where the great-grandfather and grandmother started something and then passed it on to the grandparents and then the parents and the children. I mean, I know a family right now that I have known 5 generations of them, and they have increased wisdom and wealth and the size of their hearts for other people as the generations have grown. Now, my family, if I look at my family tree, they didn't pass down anything. I mean, every generation of my family has had to start over. And so I said a few years ago, I said, man, this has got to stop. Somebody's got to throw the anchor and begin to have wealth and wisdom to pass down, or, certainly wisdom. And, wisdom leads to financial security in a way. And so the wisdom is the key part of this. And so I really am curious about that generational thing. And so we call it, 100-year parenting. And I have found this particular course is huge for people that are just leaders. I mean, maybe you've already raised your kids. Maybe you don't even have kids. Maybe you don't even like kids. But if you're doing something and leading people, this will be hugely helpful to you because it explains why people do what they do and how to help them see how to move forward in a very prosperous, increasing manner. And so I remember there's a lot of football coaches that the entire coaching staff, they watch these videos. And I remember one coach, before he got this, I was called in to deal with a situation where I was going to talk to the coaches about they had this 5-star recruit. And he was just kind of blowing it. He was just being the kind of person that was going to end up just blowing it. And so as I listened to the stories and listened to what was happening, I made the comment. I said, well, you guys are just kind of parenting here at an extreme level. And the head coach said to me, he said, hey, we're not his parents. And I said, well, yeah, I understand that. Kind of in a traditional way, you're right. I said, but the problems you are having with this young man right now are because nobody else has ever been his parents either. And so we can either say, well, we're not his parents, and we can continue to deal with this stuff until you kick him out of here, and then society is going to have to deal with him. Or we can deal with him in a principled way with ways that make sense to us and make sense to him. And then he will become a great part of this team and be out of here in 4 years or 3 years if he goes to the NFL. I mean, then he'll be out of here and he'll become a great part of society. But if we don't take the responsibility to learn something different and then teach what we know in an explainable and understandable manner, then things just are going to stay the same. But Amy, I think you're going to like this. So we're going to send it to you, and let us know. Okay, I think the videos are short because they're funny, and Matt has put a bunch of just awesome graphics on with this, so they're fast paced and easy to watch, and I think you're going to get a real kick out of it. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Amy. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Hey, speaking of challenges and answers, allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, HARBOUR. Go there right now. Get a free 5-minute guided tour and become a member of Wisdom Harbor. You do it for your family, your business, your schools. You'll love it. wisdomharbor.com. Okay, I'm the professional noticer. And ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate this podcast, I would really appreciate you going to iTunes and giving us a nice review. You can only do that once on iTunes per show, per podcast, right? And if you've already done it for us, thank you so much. If you haven't, please make today your day. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk, shake hands with the kids you meet, and make sure you have an answer to the question, why would you need an appointment to see a psychic? And so until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Lempertz. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Moist towelettes provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. An additional financial consideration provided by manyitemsforyourlife.com. What is it about miniaturized objects that make us all smile? A tiny chair, a little spoon, a petite wooden dog, an itsy-bitsy cutout picture of yourself or a family member, all small, all without ordinary function. But that extraordinary function is the burst of happiness you feel while arranging and rearranging miniatures on your desk, on your shelves, and throughout your home. At manyitemsforlife.com, we're taking your favorite miniatures another step further by miniaturizing the object that your items sit upon, then adding an even smaller version on or inside that. Just imagine your executive-sized desk in front of you, the tiny sculpture of The Thinker by Auguste Rodin to your right, your computer in the middle, but then off to the left, another mini version of your desk with an even smaller rendition of The Thinker, thinking the tiniest little thoughts. You'll be lucky to wipe that smile off your face for a moment. You won't be able to wait. You won't be able to wait for clients and friends to enter your inner sanctum, discover your peculiar model on your desk, and think, wow, now this is a person of unique caliber. At least they will think that a tiny little bit. So head on over to manyitemsforyourlife.com and start crafting your tiny new life today. Today.